Hello everybody and welcome back to 3D Creations for Beginners. I have not posted a video in about 5 years. I made a few not very good tutorials, gave up on the channel, a whole lot of life happened, and then here we are again. Anyway, today we're going to be making some cool science fiction jet fighters. The reason why is I think they look really cool. Now, I'm not necessarily an expert at any of this. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are making much better tutorials than I am and know how to do this a lot better and more efficiently than I do. The reason I'm doing it this way is because it's something that works for me personally. It does not require too much knowledge, it is not too complicated, and it can be pretty fun to do. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're just going to be working with the default cube. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at this in wireframe. We went and toggled to our top orthographic view by pressing 7. We're going to enter edit mode by pressing tab. So we're going to box select the two left vertices on this cube by clicking B and dragging a box around it. So you can see here that we have half of the cube selected. We're turning to top view, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select these vertices. I guess it's 4 vertices, not 2. We're going to select these and we're going to drag them past the center point here. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is apply the mirror modifier, and the mirror modifier, what that's going to do is anything that we do on this side, it is going to basically duplicate it over here, mirror it. So we're going to go down to our modifiers tab, which is this little wrench, add modifier, and we're going to go ahead and click on mirror. So what we want to do is we want to have these 4 vertices exactly in the center so everything touches. So what we're going to do is we're going to press N, or we can click on this little arrow icon here, and right here the X value we're going to put 0. So that means that this is exactly in the middle, so these two halves are now touching. So what we're going to do here is sculpt the basic shape of whatever we want our spaceship or jet fighter or boat or whatever you're making to look like. I'm just going to pull that out, expand it a little bit, and we're going to click on this top face right here, and I have selected face select over here. We're just going to pull that down and make this shape right here. First we're going to click on this, and we are going to extrude out. So we press E for extrude, pull that out, there we go. Now what we want to do is select this front face, and we want to drag it back. More detail on the top here, so I'm going to click on this top face, and then once again we're going to press E to extrude and pull that up. Now, I would like to have this at a little bit of a sharper angle here to make it, again, look somewhat aerodynamic. So right now we're on face select. We're going to go ahead and click on edge select. So now we can select the edges. We're going to select this front edge here. We're going to go ahead, click, and pull it back on this axis. There we go. That's starting to look a little bit less than terrible. Same thing, we're going to select this edge right here, and we're going to pull this in a little bit. So after that, what I'm going to do here is click on this face right here. We're going to press E to extrude, pull that out one more time, click, there we go. And I would like to pull this section out a little bit, so what we're going to do is click on that face again, we're going to press E to extrude, pull it out just a little bit, and I want this to kind of be angled back, so we're going to do the same thing as we did before. Click on edge select, select this front edge, and pull it back. Alright, one thing that I would like to do is have this sort of get thinner as we move to the outside of it, and we can do that pretty easily. So we're going to go ahead and select this face, and then over on the left, click on scale. We want to scale on the Z-axis, so we're going to click on the blue and just drag it down a little bit like that. And now let's go ahead and give it some kind of, maybe a wing. That would look kind of cool, right? So what we are going to do is we need to put a new edge loop in here. So we're going to press Control R, and then we're going to click, and before we click again, wherever this little yellow line is, that's where it's going to put in a new edge. So I think we should put it right around halfway, just like that. Now, what we can do is we can extrude this face here, and we're going to press E to extrude one more time, and then we're going to pull this back. We're just going to press that edge select button, pull all this back. There we go. There is our wing. I would like to add a little bit towards the back, maybe. Extend the fuselage a little bit. We can easily do that. Face select, E to extrude, pull that back. And maybe we should add some kind of a tail fin to the top. That would be kind of cool. So what we're going to do is add another edge loop. We're going to press Control R again. And we're going to bring that to the middle. Now keep in mind, it is going to be mirrored, so it's going to be twice as thick as we make this little space. We're going to go ahead and put in another edge loop, Control R, this time moving in this direction, to figure out exactly how long we want that tail fin to be. Let's put it right here. Right click, E to extrude, pull that up. Same as we did for the wings, we're going to pull that back. Move back over to Edge Select, click on that front edge, and move it back. And we can continue to do little tweaks and details with the way that the shape is going to be. For example, I would like this back section here to be tapered off. Easy. Just click on this edge, pull it in. Same thing here. I would like to have this be maybe closed to make it look a little bit more aerodynamic. So we're going to select this edge, scale it down. There we go. I would like to maybe add another section with some more wings back here. So you get the idea now. Control R to add an edge loop. Select that. Now what I'm going to do here is add 2 edge loops to make this wing. So we're going to press Control R, and then we're going to scroll up once on the mouse, and you can see every time I scroll up on the mouse, it's going to add more edge loops. And then put that right there. So what I want to do is pull this out, this area right here out, but I would like it to be thinner than this. So what we're going to do is we're going to press I, and I is going to inset this. So after we press I, we scale it down to figure out how thick we want it. Then we're going to press E to extrude, pull that out. And same thing as before, pull that back, select this front edge, pull that back. Okay, very good. I think it would be kind of cool to maybe have these flared up. Or what we're going to do is select the outer face of this rear wing, and then pull that up and out of the way. I'd like to eventually put some kind of an engine right in here, so we should probably move these out of the way and up like that. So this is the basic shape that we're going to be working on. We could keep going, we could keep tweaking it, refining it, pulling edges down, making it look a little bit better than this, but just for the purposes of the tutorial, we're going to continue forward. So that is step 1. Now step 2, what we're going to do is we want this to be smoothed out. We want this to have nice curves, soft edges, things like that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add another modifier. And now we want to add the subdivision surface modifier. So what that is going to do is basically smooth this out for us. And we can go ahead and down here, if we look under the modifier, if we increase the quality to 3 on both render, viewport, there we go. And if we press W, shade smooth. So as you can see, this is smoothed out everything. So this thing now looks like a stingray, and it's really lost any kind of hard edges. Now we might not necessarily want that. So what we're going to do now is press Tab to go back into edit mode. So now what we're going to do is figure out what we want to be very smooth and what we want to be sort of rigid and straight by adding more edge loops, just like we were doing before. We're going to press Tab to go in the edit mode. Now, let's say we want to make these wings look a little bit less butterfly-ish or stingray-ish. If we add edge loops, they're going to straighten back out. So we're going to press Control R on the wing, click once, and as we pull it out to the edge, you can see it straightens it back out. So we're going to add another edge loop here, pull it this way. So I want to do the same thing with this back wing here, or the big tail fin. Let's just pull that up. And same thing for these little wings here. So we're going to Control R to add an edge loop, pull that to the edge. There we go. So now these have a little bit more of a shape. It looks less blobby. Now I want to do the same thing to this cabin section here. So we're going to Control R, add an edge loop, and we're going to push this one down. So we have a little bit more of a defined area of where the cabin meets the rest of the craft. And same here, if I want this angle here to be a little bit sharper leading up to this front edge, add my edge loop, pull that, done. Okay, so the next step is going to be to apply some of these modifiers. Now keep in mind, after we apply the modifiers, we really can't go back and continue to edit things like in mirror mode like we're doing now. So make sure that you have the shape how you want it, and then apply the modifier. And we're just going to start by clicking apply on this mirror modifier. So that means it is now no longer a mirrored image, but each side can be adjusted. Oh, and one thing here is if we want to get rid of this little seam, we can do that very easily. If we go into modifier and we add an edge split modifier, there we go. That's going to get rid of that seam in the middle. We are 100% sure we do not want to make any more adjustments to anything on here. Geometry wise, we're going to apply the subdivision surface modifier. So now if we tap in edit mode, every single one of those faces and edges is now going to be 100% in the mesh rather than just being on that modifier. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to separate what we want to be metal and what we want to be glass. What I was thinking is that we would have this whole thing be some kind of maybe reflective metal and have this canopy be some kind of a see-through cockpit or cabin. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and add materials. Now normally this would be done through adding lots of different textures, things of that nature. Again, this is just a quick and easy way to accomplish this. So we have one material that's automatically been assigned, and we're going to go ahead and name that metal, because we know we're going to put a metal shader on that. Let's add another one, glass. Now this is going to be our glass canopy. So what we want to do now is separate out what's going to be what. So let's say from here up is going to be glass. So how do we do that? Well, we could select every single one of these. That can take a long time. So we're going to do it the faster way, which is to find the very bottom of what we're looking for. So let's say this is the bottom edge. We're going to hold an Alt and then right click next to one of these edges. And as you can see, it has selected half. We're going to do the same thing on this other end. Now what we're going to do is hold in Shift, Alt, right click. There we go. Perfect. So we're going to click on glass and click assign. So what we can do to see the difference between these, because they're all the same in the viewport, is if we have this glass material selected, we scroll down under viewport display, click the color. We're going to make this blue. Okay. So now all we're going to do is continue to click. Now remember, hold down Shift, right click, right click, right click, right click. Then click assign. There we go. And you can press B for box select. Select a whole bunch at once. Assign. Or you can press C. And what that's going to do is let you kind of paint your selection on here. Make sure the glass shader is selected. Click assign. Okay, and I have gone and I have sped up this part of the video here because I'm pretty sure you get the idea. So you can see now this is completed. Now obviously I did not do a very neat job. I was very messy and I accidentally clicked on parts of the body that I did not want to be that color. Don't worry about that if it happens. Just go ahead and select the ones you accidentally selected before. Go back to the metal shader, click assign. There we go. If you're not good at coloring inside the lines here, it really doesn't matter. Now, let's say that we actually don't want this canopy to be so open. We maybe want to have the top portion covered, or maybe the back portion covered. Very, very easy. Once again, all we're going to do, I'm going to use the box select tool by clicking B, and I'm going to select this portion right here. We're going to go ahead and assign that metal shader again. And let's say we want this section back here to be also enclosed. So we're going to select that. And let's go ahead and make sure we follow this loop down here. Selecting all these. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually start building some of these shaders and building out some of these materials. So the first one we're going to do is the easy one. We're going to make this look like some kind of metal. We're going to go to shader editor, and this is going to bring up the node editor. So we have this metal shader selected here. Now this is what's going to control that metal shader. As you can see here, let me go ahead and I'm going to toggle over to viewport shading so we can actually see this as we change some things about it. So if we change the color down here, you can see this is what's going to control that. Now what we're going to do is this metallic slider, we're going to drag this up, and you can kind of see it is giving a little bit more of a metal-like sheen. Now the roughness, this is going to control how reflective it is. So if we bring it all the way down, it makes it mirror shiny. If that's what you want to go with, keep it at that. If not, then probably pull the roughness up a little bit. Basically find something that works. We're going to go ahead and leave that right in the middle like that. And again, if you want to change the color, just click on base color. And so if you want it to be red and metallic like that, I think that looks pretty cool. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with a metal red flying car stingray. The next thing that we're going to do is work on the glass shader. So we're going to select that. Now this is going to require us to make some quick changes in the render settings properties. So over here we're going to click on this little, looks like the back of the DSLR camera. Now this is what is going to allow us to do transparency. So what we want to do is make sure to click on screen space reflections and click on refraction. So the first thing that we have to do after we've done the render settings is enable that option within the shader itself. So we're going to go back to the material properties. We're going to scroll down under the glass shader, and under settings, we're going to click on screen space refraction. Now this is going to allow this material to be transparent on the screen. So if we go down to our shader editor in the node window and we click on transmission, if we pull that up, the next thing that we need to do is adjust the IOR setting. There we go. So if we put it at 1, it will just be straight up transparent. Now, of course, we can also play with the roughness setting. If we do take this roughness setting and we pull it all the way down, if you want to have something that's more reflective than transparent, you can play with the IOR setting to get something maybe like this just by dragging it up or down a little bit. So instead of seeing through it, it will reflect it like a car window. But I want to be able to see inside this, so my IOR setting is going to go to 1. So let's say our last step, we might want to give this thing some engines. And like I said before, I want to put the engines right here. So in order to do that, we're going to make a new object. So we're going to go to Shift A, add in a cylinder. Now what we're going to want to do here is kind of sculpt a jet engine. So we're going to tab into edit mode, select this face. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to extrude out to right there. We're going to press S to scale it in. We're going to press I to inset just a little bit, and then we're going to press E to extrude, and we're going to pull that down. So that kind of looks like a jet engine, I guess. Now we want to go ahead and rotate it, so we're going to pull open the object properties and drag the rotation on the x-axis to -90. Cool. Now scale it down by S. So we're going to probably want 2 of these. So what we're going to do is, just like before, we're going to apply the mirror modifier. Only this time we're going to make sure to mirror the cube object, which is of course our spaceship. As you can see here, it has created another reflection of itself over here, just like that. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is smooth these out. So if we go over to the right and we click on our object data properties and we go under normals, we select auto smooth. You have to make sure to set it to shade smooth, and there we go. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, as far as what we want the color of it to look like, there's a few different things that you can go do here. Personally, what I would do would be to make the cylindrical part of the engine the same shader as the rest of the body, and then have this ending piece be black. Hey everybody, Future Zach here. Sorry, I actually did not go over the step because I was not able to record it. What we're going to do is assign the red metal material to the entire object here of the engine, and then what we are going to do is create a new material. We're going to call this carbon, and we're going to make the base color a dark gray, not black, but a dark gray. And then we are going to select all of the loops or the faces on this side of the object. Make sure that metal shader is selected and click assign. And once we have done that, we are all set with this step. So one other detail that I want to do is okay, so on the space shuttle engines, there is this webbing on the outside of it, which is used for, I think, hydrogen passes through it to cool the engines, and I always thought that looked really cool. So what we're going to do here is put that same effect on this engine. But we need to duplicate this. So what we're going to do is press Shift D, basically copies and paste it. After you do that, go ahead and right click to release it. So now we of course have one on top of the other one. So we want this other one to only have this back portion as the object. So what we're going to do is we're going to press Tab into edit mode. It may help to go into wireframe here so you can see through it. And then we're going to press 7, and that's going to bring up the top view. And what we want to do is we want to delete everything that is in front of this back part of the engine. So we're going to hold in B to box select all that, X, delete faces. All set. So now we are only left with this back part of the engine. The next thing that we're going to do is apply a modifier again. So if we go down here, we add modifier, and we're going to want to select wireframe. And what that is going to do is basically pull out that information and make a new mesh around just the wireframe. So when we apply our wireframe modifier, now let's go ahead and make these pieces a little bit thicker. All we have to do, under the wireframe modifier, drag up the thickness for how much you want it, and that's a little too much. And let's say right around here. I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing that we're going to do here is work on some of the lighting and the effects. And this is going to be the last step. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a little bit of an afterburner here, and also maybe set a little bit of a scene, add a sky, add some lights, something nice like that. So you've probably noticed this object that's been hanging around with us. This is a light. If you are in rendered mode right here, and you move the light closer and you move it around, you will see that in real time, the light, in fact, affects the object. So let's say we take this light here, we'll click on the light's value. We want to turn the power up. Right now it's at 1000, let's pull it to 3000. Let's go ahead and put that right in front of the craft here, right on the edge. Now let's make another light. Shift D to duplicate that, put that one behind it. Now you've probably noticed this kind of gross looking background color. If we want to change that, we click on the world properties, the world settings, select the color, and you can change it to whatever color you want. I want to make the background black. Now, also, as you can see, we have a little camera set up here. And if we press 0, this is going to show exactly what our rendered image is going to look like. So what we want to do is we want to select this light back here, press 0 to look at the camera view, and then if we move the light back, we can see how it's going to look in the image. So I want to put it just right there on the edge. So I want to go ahead and put in a little bit of a fill light, so I'm going to add a new light. And of course we press Shift A, light. We're going to add an area light. And what we want to do is we want to make this much larger. So we're going to increase the scale of the light under the light settings. So you can see right here, square. We're going to make that much, much bigger. And let's set this light, let's put it up here. And now, if we go back into camera view mode, if we start bringing this power value up, so let's set the value to 500. Okay, let's go a little bit higher. A little bit higher. There we go. So let's say right around 1050 is where we're going to put that value. So let's go ahead and pull this camera out a little bit. And the further out we pull it, the further back we're going to be from the object and the more we can see it. Another thing that we can do is we can press G while the camera's selected, and that'll sort of pan it around a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's render our image. Rendering the image is going to export a picture file or a photo file, and that's how you're going to be able to actually see and present what you've made. So in order to do that, we're going to press F12. And after a few seconds, you will see that this image has rendered out. Unfortunately, you can't really see inside the canopy. It is transparent, and if we want to show that off, no problem. All we want to do here is just add a new light. I'm just going to add a little point light here. We want to take that and position that inside the cabin. So the last thing that I want to do is going to be adding let's say we put a big afterburner coming out of the back of this. Like, this thing is really going fast. We have to create another object, and we also have to enable a setting in Blender. So before we add that other object, we're going to look at the rest of these options we have here under rendering. If we click bloom, basically what that's going to do is anything that would be overexposed, it's going to bloom out and glow just like it would in a real camera lens. It is a little bit exaggerated by default, so we can take that intensity value down a bit. We're going to do 0.02. Okay. Actually, let's go lower than that. Let's go 0.01. There we go. So now you can see there's a very, very faint glow here. But we're going to use that to our advantage because when we create our afterburner object, that is going to have a much higher light intensity, so it's going to kind of glow more than anything else in the scene would. So how do we do that? We're going to go back to our solid view. Let's go ahead and we are going to add a new mesh. We're going to add a cone. So what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to add the mirror modifier, and we're going to select the object of the cube, and the cube is, of course, this, our spacecraft, or our aircraft. We want to go ahead and rotate this negative 90 degrees. Negative 90 degrees, there we go. And this is going to be basically the cone of hot gas that's coming out of that engine. Scale it down uniformly by pressing S. Go ahead and try and put it into position. So let's go ahead, scale that down some more, scale it down even more, and maybe drag it out a little bit. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. So we are going to add a new material. We're going to go back into our render view so we can see what it's going to look like in real time. We're going to want to press W, shade smooth. There we go. So the next thing we're going to do is, in the render view, add a material for this cone. We're going to select new material, and for the surface we want to select emission, and that's going to allow this object to glow. Choose the base color. I'm going to go with a nice yellow. Now here is where we make it look cool. The strength value, we're going to turn that up a lot. So now if we look to our render view, go ahead and select render our image, and this is our final result. So as you can see, not too much detail on it. It is very simplistic. However, we could continue to go in there and mess with settings. For example, we could add some wear or some scratches to the metal. We could add some decals, perhaps some greebling here, and of course more mesh complexity. But like I was saying earlier, this is a very simple and easy way to get started building these kinds of things. If you want to do this yourself, if you go to the website blender.org, that is the name of the software Blender that I have been using. It is completely free, and there is an enormous resource of much more qualified people than myself making tutorial videos, and that is how I got started. So if you would like to continue to see more of these tutorial videos, and for me to not wait another 5 years to make another one, leave me a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. So thank you so much for watching, and have a fun rest of lockdown.